Now I've finally fitted spacers to my Mark II Leon, and sadly it's not as straightforward as just going out and buying any old spacers and putting them on your car. So in this video I'm going to show you what to do when you're looking for spacers, what ones you should be going for, and also when you could actually avoid buying spacers altogether if you're looking to get brand new alloy wheels. So I've actually been running spacers now for quite some time with no bother at all, and I just had to take one side off for demonstration purposes for this video. So what I'll do is I'll show you just now what it's like on one side without spacers, and then what it's like on the other side with spacers, and see, getting disturbed by the birds here. Yeah, and basically just show you the difference between one side without spacers and one side with spacers to see if you can notice a big difference. For the side that's just completely standard without spacers, you can see that at the back there is a fair bit of a misalignment between the back wheel and the edge of the arch at the top. And at the front it's not actually too bad, although it does come in a fair bit near the top there as well, as you can see. Here's a bit closer up of the back wheel. So yeah, there is a fair bit of difference between where the edge of the arch sits and where the tyre is sitting as well. If it'll focus. And then going across the side with spacers, you'll see the wheels sitting a lot more out. I do admit my car isn't properly slammed, there's still a fair bit of an arch gap there, even though it's got a lowering kit on it, but it's not a severe lowering kit, so that's why there's still a fair gap. But when it comes to alignment, you can definitely see that the spacers have brought this wheel out to the edge of the arch pretty closely actually. Can't say you can get any closer than that. And down at the front, I'm still undecided if this is actually too big of a spacer for the front. So what I've got is 13mm at the front and 15mm at the back. And depending which way you look at the front, it doesn't look too bad. It's kind of like pretty much in line there. Sometimes when I look at the front of the car like that, I just think maybe it's just sticking out a few mil too much. So maybe 10mm would have been better for the front, and then kept the 15mm on the back. What's your thoughts? If you let me know down below in the comments. But yeah, as I said, there's actually a lot more things to consider when buying wheel spacers for your car, like the PCD, which is the pitch center diameter, which is basically the diameter of the circle that runs through the center of all your stud holes, or studs if you have studs in your car. Usually, I think on my one, it's 5 by 112. Actually, it says on the spacers I got. Yeah, 5 by 112. So that means it's 5 studs, or 5 holes for studs, and then you've got 112mm, which is the diameter of the circle that runs through the centre of all those studs. Now, I have read somewhere that what you're meant to do when you're getting spacers is you're meant to stick to the same size spacers. When you widen the track at the front, you're meant to stick to the same width of track at the back. I'm not too sure if that's a definitive guide. You've got to do that, because like I said, I'm running 15 on the back and 13 on the front, and I haven't actually noticed any difference in the handling of the car at all. I wouldn't even say it handles any better in corners. People do say as you make the track wider, you'll notice a lot better handling, but I think with such a small difference with the spacers I've got, it's not actually making much of a difference that I can actually notice when driving day to day. So the kit I got for my car was from a place on eBay called PCD Parts. They have their own stamped wheel spacers that they make, I think, themselves in-house, and I think it was about £110 for this kit. And you'll also receive lengthened wheel bolts as well, which you will need. You can't use the standard wheel bolts. There's a fair difference in size, you can see there, between the two of them. And yeah, it's really unsafe to use just your standard wheel bolts that you had before. It needs to be a bit longer, obviously, because of the extra width now between the edge of the bolt going in and the hub itself. I'll also take a look at the back of my wheels, because my wheels are 19-inch wheels. I'm not sure what offset they are, but I'll take a note for this next part. So what we'll do now is put those spacers back on the car, because it looks pretty weird at the moment. We're just having one side with spacers, one side not. But in a sec, I'm going to quickly explain to you a guide to ET, which is the offset of the wheels, because when it comes to buying new wheels for your car, what you can do is you can stop any need for spacers. If you're looking to get a brand new set of wheels and currently you've got an old set with spacers, your next set of wheels could basically go on without any spacers at all, and that's what I'll explain in a second. Just got a very quick message to say that I've got a brand new website up and running called northcoastworkshop.com. Go and check it out. It's got stuff you can download for free. It's also got a free newsletter to sign up for. So every month I'm going to create and put out a brand new newsletter to all my subscribers. So go and check out, sign up to the newsletter, and let me know what you think. Right, so I'm going to try and explain as best I can basically the rules when it comes to measurements of alloy wheels. Now, my alloy wheels on my car are 19 inches when it comes to their diameter, but when it comes to their width, they're an 8.0J, which is basically 8 inches. So that's 8 inches from one side of the wheel to the other. And if you turn it into millimeters, that is 200 millimeters. So alloys have either a negative offset, a positive offset, or a zero offset. So you can imagine if it's 200 millimeters wide across the whole bit of the alloy, the zero offset would be at the 100mm mark. And I believe this would just be shown as a 0 ET. Now the alloys on my car, they came with a 53 ET, which means basically 53mm positive offset, which would be going out the way towards the outer side of the wheel, away from the car. Now maybe wondering why offset is so important with cars. So if you can imagine, if the offset isn't correct, maybe you've seen this yourself before, is that brake calipers can actually catch the inside of the alloy if there's not enough space between where the inside of the spokes of the alloys kind of dip away and the caliper coming up against them. So sometimes people do put on different wheels onto their cars. They find that the alloys catch on the brake calipers, and the easiest solution usually for this is just put a set of spacers on it. But if you were looking to get proper wheels for your car to fit straight on, you'd have to make sure the offset was correct so they gave enough space for the calipers. Also, what you will find is you don't want the wheels to sit too far into the arches either. So if you have a really wide track of alloy wheel, then you might find that the wheel sits too far into the arch and catches. This is meant to be a suspension strut here. It's not a great picture, but imagine a suspension strut here, and the alloy fits over the hub and the brake caliper, and there's no issues here. But then you find as the alloy goes on, the tyre rubs against the inside of the strut at the top. This is quite common as well, and again what some people do is just put on spacers to take it away from the side of the suspension strut. Now this diagram here, what I've got is just basically an underside view of the rear wheel of the car. This is the outside of the car. This is the inside of the wheel arch and the wheel and the tyre here. Now if the offset is incorrect on that wheel and the wheel sits too close in to the arch liner, you'll find that the wheel, or the tyre at least, will catch the inside of the wheel arch, and you won't be able to move the car at all until that's fixed. Again, this is an easy fix. If someone puts a wheel spacer in here, then that will bring the tyre out and the wheel out the way, away from the wheel arch. So what would happen if you came to, like I said, ordering new wheels for your car and you wanted to eliminate spacers altogether, but you wanted to get a nice wide track on your car? Well, different sizes of alloys themselves come in 8Js or 8.5 or 9Js. So for this example, I'll use 9J as an example. That's the width of the alloy, which is 225 millimeters. I've had to write a lot of this down because there's no way I can remember all this. So my current offset for my alloy wheel is 53 millimeters. So if we look back at my wheel, it was 200 millimeters from one side of the alloy to the other, and the alloy would be, dead center of the alloy would be 100 millimeters plus this 53. So 100 millimeters in. This is just me working from the inside of the wheel arch, imagine, across the center, then across to the offset. So 100 millimeters in plus the 53 equals 153 millimeters. Now this is basically what I need to know as the space I need from this back of the alloy, so where it mounts onto the hub, up to the tyre wall or the edge of the wheel where it will sit against the suspension strut or the wheel arch. So the aftermarket alloy that we're using example is going to be 225 millimeters, and we divide that by 2 because we want to get the center line of this alloy wheel, which will be 112.5 millimeters. So that means on the new wheel, for this center line here, for this bit to this bit, it is now 112.5 millimeters. Now we know that we need 153 millimeters clearance, so from where it was mounting before on the old wheel to this new wheel, so we need to go 153 millimeters in this way. So we basically just take 112.5 away from 153 millimeters, which will give us 40.5. So 40.5 is where we need this new offset to be on the new alloy wheels, this 9J width. I don't think you get 40.5 offsets, so it'll either be 40 or 41 ET. It's a positive ET again, and this again will just be the position of where the inside of the mounting point of the alloy will sit in relation to the rest of the wheel. Now hopefully that makes sense. It didn't really make sense to me at the start until I had to write it all down. It's just really important, like I said, to measure these kind of things or understand what the ET is for the wheels you got on the car, because that gives you a starting point to work from when you're looking to buy future wheels for the car if you are changing the width of them. There's always the option of adding wider tyres to the alloy you've got. There is a minimum and a maximum width of tyres. So your 235 tyres and your 245 tyres can actually only go on certain width of alloys before they become either sitting too far over the edges or they become too stretched. A lot of people go for stretched wheels, which there is a kind of limit to how much you can stretch a tyre over an alloy, and I think there's actually a legal limit as well before the police will pull you over and say it's unacceptable for road use. So if you do have any questions regarding this diagram here that I've drawn, like I said, that would be my, if I was going for 19-inch alloy wheels again, but I was going for a wider track, 9J, which is 225mm width of alloy, I'd be looking for a 40 or a 41 offset on that alloy to make sure that it didn't have any issues on the inside of the wheel arch or against the shock absorber, but it did definitely bring it a lot wider out towards the edge of the arch, which means there'd actually be no point then in having to put any spacers on the car because it actually brings out the alloy and the tyre with it at the same time. Oh, and one point quickly, if you were wondering what this would be in relation to having a spacer on the car instead, it'd be the same as having a 25mm spacer. It's quite a severe kind of push of the wheel across the way. Anyway, that's enough of math stuff just now. What I was going to say was, if you have got a set of alloy wheels on the car just now, but you're not sure what offset they are, maybe the back of them is badly corroded and you can't read it at all, there is a way to measure offset on your alloys quite easily. So I've got these alloys here. Actually, you're getting a sneak peek at my Project Ibiza parts here because I've just had them recently refurbished for my Ibiza. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a link at the end of the video for this. Anyway, what we'll use is one of these for a demonstration to show you how I can find out the offset of this alloy exactly without having to look at the back of the wheel or try and find it online anywhere. So we'll check that just now. So you need to put your alloy, first of all, onto a very flat surface. What I'll get is just a spirit level to put across the wheel, and this just basically gives us a nice flat line across the top here that we can then measure from the middle point here. This doesn't have to be level, by the way. I'm just using spirit level for example, but it doesn't matter if it's level, but as long as it's sitting from one side of the wheel to the other. Then we'll just measure down the way to the floor, up to the bottom of the spirit level, and we have 205mm. So now what we want to do is we want to measure basically the distance from the top here across to this point here, so the back face of here. This is where the offset is measured from. So we have 60 mil, I think that is. So trying to do maths on the screen just now quickly. So what we can have is we'll have 205 divided by 2 to give us the halfway point of this wheel, which will be 102.5. Then we've got the 60 mil from the top going down towards the offset. So that basically means from the center up to that offset, it should be 42.5, if that's right on the screen just now. So 42.5 offset, ET, see what this says, if it actually says 42 or 40. So we weren't too far off, which isn't too bad actually, considering there's a tyre in the way. Sometimes the tyre does make it a wee bit less accurate, so you're probably better doing it on just a bare alloy itself. But if we look inside, that comes up on camera, our ET is ET41. So yeah, that's basically how you'd find out the offset for an alloy wheel if you couldn't see it on the wheel or it was badly corroded and worn off. So that's the way you work it out. Like I said, if you have got it without tyres on it, that's a lot better, a lot more accurate as well. Anyway, I do apologise for all the lengthy math stuff that I did do there. Hopefully it's been of some use though, so you can work out yourself, or you can use it as reference, or if you're not too sure about actually anything that I said, do ask me down below in the comments because I was kind of rushing through it quite quickly. Anyway, the spacers are back on the car now. It's all looking a lot more normal. I'm still not 100% sure about the front tyres. They do stick out just that wee bit too much. I kind of wish I'd bought like 10mm spacers. I was thinking, nah, I'll just 13 will do. I was getting greedy, so I might opt for another pair for the front and see how it looks on 10mm spacers. If you want to get spacers yourself from PCD parts on eBay, I'll leave a link to their shop down below. You just need to make sure you're checking what kind of width you're looking for. I haven't really got a set way of knowing what to go for because my 19-inch alloys will obviously be a different. My 19-inch alloys will be a bit different compared to your 18-inch alloys and the way they sit in the arches, so I can't say exactly which ones you'll go for. But there's loads of forums on Facebook groups as well. There's a lot of questions being asked, a lot of answers being given for different sizes of wheels, so loads of knowledge out there if you need to find out what spacers to go for. I was extremely careful with my spacers when I first got them because I wasn't sure how they would fit and if they're going to be having to get returned or not, so I was trying to make sure I kept them clean, kept them free of scuffs in case I had to get back in touch with PCD parts and say, can I return them for a different size instead? So maybe do the same yourself, but please do be careful with them if you are thinking that you might have to return them. If I didn't say as well, my parts were obviously used, so that's why they're so dirty. They obviously come pristine. They're really good quality actually. I must say that I haven't had a chance to feel what the Forge ones are. I know Forge are quite a popular spacer brand as well, but I've never had a chance to hold them in my hands. But those ones that came were really well machined, solid pieces of metal, and the bolts are perfect as well. So I can't highly recommend them. From my experience with them so far, they've been perfect, and there's been no balancing issues with the car whatsoever. Obviously being a hub-centric design as well, that helps a lot, keep them dead center on the hubs as well. Anyway, enough waffle. If you enjoyed the video or found it boring in any sort of way because of the math stuff, then do hit the thumbs up button. Hit subscribe down below to catch more videos from the channel in future. If you do want to see the first video for the Ibiza, which I've just kind of given you a sneak peek of the alloys for it, then click the video up here in the corner. I'll leave a link to that for you. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.